everyone, it's Sam aka Ocean Unknown and welcome back to my channel. First off, I just wanted to say thank you all so much for the love on my Hunger Games video I made back in May. I made that video simply because I was reading it for class and my semi-annual Hunger Games hyperfixation started up yet again and I really didn't expect it to do as well as it's done in the past few weeks. So I just wanted to say thank you all so much for all the support and love, and you will all hopefully be very excited since this video is an even deeper dive into the Hunger Games. This video is following up after my last video about the Hunger Games, where I am expanding on my analysis about the careers. And I will be discussing every single career tribute that we know of in the Hunger Games franchise. So with that out of the way, it is time to discuss the completed history of everything we know so far about the careers in the Hunger Games franchise.
What are the Hunger Games for?
For starters, the career districts of Panem consist of districts 1, 2, and 4, and in the events of the 74th Hunger Games in the first book, the career tributes training combat and survival skills to eventually volunteer to participate in the Hunger Games. However, with the existence of the prequel of the Hunger Games trilogy, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, we know that the careers weren't a thing in the earlier iterations of the games, as the prequel depicts the 10th annual Hunger Games and there are no career tributes. Actually, half the tributes from the districts that would become career districts are killed before the games even start. Velverine and Facet, both of the tributes from District 1, are killed by peacekeepers after an attempt to escape competing in the games, and Sabin, the girl from District 2, falls to her death in a failed escape attempt as well. Despite there being no career districts in the first decade of the Hunger Games, it is stated in The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Coriolanus Snow that Districts 1, 2, and 4 turned out more better-fed tributes in the games, resulted in more victors in the first 10 years. While not a future career district, tributes from District 11 were also considered as strong contenders, which we slightly see with Reaper in The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, because while Reaper never kills anyone in the games, it is stated that before the District 11 reaping, he killed a peacekeeper and got away with it. Going back to the future career districts, due to the explanation that Districts 1, 2, and 4 have more well-fed tributes, it is implied that all three of those districts have produced at least one victor in the early years of the Hunger Games. The strong contention for these three districts is mostly due to those districts' industries, luxury, masonry, and fishing respectively, but it is also important to consider that due to these industries and the close proximity and distance of these districts to the capital, that the capital would fear these districts specifically in the possibility of another rebellion happening. Thus, the capital tries to cause infighting between the districts to prevent the districts banding together and rebelling against the capital, and thus districts 1, 2, and 4 are more privileged and are more loyal to the capital than other districts. Additionally, these three districts provide highly valued goods for the capital, and over the course of the history of Panem, these districts in the capital likely built up a certain level of loyalty, mostly built on transactions and capital propaganda, which created a clear divide between these three districts and the other 9 both in the Hunger Games and in everyday life. It is never outright stated when the conception of the career training began, but we can infer that it began after the events of the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and was likely at some point during Snow's presidency. As we see in the prequel, a huge part of the 10th Hunger Games, which is mostly attributed to Snow, is that the tributes start to become the spectacles that we see 64 years later in the 74th annual Hunger Games with the mentorship, tribute parade, and interviews. The Hunger Games, after all, is a performance, a story that has its many cogs and gears to compel an audience. It needs its stakes, rising action, climax, and a satisfying resolution. This is exactly why the capital wouldn't let someone like Titus, the cannibal that Katniss mentions in the first book, win. So to create a structured yet satisfying narrative, the more loyal districts created a system to give every single Hunger Games a group of overdogs for the capital to root for as the heroes of the games, aka the careers. Now, while I said that the careers didn't exist for the first decade of the Hunger Games, I wanted to bring up that the strategy we see the careers use in both the 74th and 75th Hunger Games is used by two characters that are from a future career district in Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, that being the tributes from District 4, Coral and Mizzen. Coral and Mizzen are noted as two of the stronger tributes in the 10th Hunger Games, and as we later see in future games, Coral and Mizzen form a decently sized alliance to maneuver the game. However, unlike future careers who typically only align with other careers, Coral and Mizzen align themselves with Tanner, the male tribute from District 10, as well as Bobbin, the male tribute from District 8 in the film. It is also stated that Coral before the game was already very skilled with using a trident, and while some interpret this fact as Coral being an early iteration of a career tribute, I more view this information as Coral using her fishing skills from District 4 to her advantage. Mizzen is also stated to be skilled with a trident and different types of fishing equipment, which increased both his and Coral's chances of victory. Like the future career tributes, Coral and Mizzen are a deadly pair, with Coral killing 3 tributes in the book and 6 in the film, with Mizzen killing Teslie in the film and assisting in 4 deaths. Mizzen has less connection to other career tributes, but it's noteworthy to mention how Coral and Mizzen used alliances in the games like future careers, and how their relationship in the games can be compared to career tributes later in the series, specifically Kato and Clove. While Coral's age is never specified, Mizzen is explicitly said to be 13 years old and is likely one of the youngest in the 10th Hunger Games. Clove is also young compared to the other tributes in the 74th Hunger Games, especially compared to the other careers at only 15 years old. In the film, Coral feels a strong amount of fear and remorse when Mizzen dies, and in the book, Coral showed a lot of care towards Mizzen, which is quite similar to how Kato reacted to Clove's death in the book. In addition, there can be a striking comparison between Coral and Kato's final moments in their respective films, as they both realize that the games are unjust and they killed so many people for basically nothing, before they are both killed by mutts created by the Capitol. In Kato's case, the wolf mutts, for Coral, the rainbow venomous snakes. While Coral and Mizzen aren't actual career tributes, it's interesting to look at them and see the connections to the careers in the later games, and also how the tributes from career districts behaved before the existence of careers. Now that the prequel is out of the way, I wanted to start off with a character who wasn't a career, but she is the first named winner from a career district, and the aftermath of her winning games is definitely influential to how the career tributes are perceived, and that is the victor of the 11th Hunger Games, Mags Flanagan. Mags won her games at 16 years old, and it's very likely that her victory can be attributed to skills she acquired from living in District 4. However, what is truly important about Mags' victory in the context of this video is that Mags not only was the first victor to embark on a victory tour, but she was also presumably the first victor to move into the Victor's Village, as the idea of the village was implemented during the 11th year of the Hunger Games. Mags, while not a career herself, became the poster child for the newly established spectacularization of the tributes and the new system of the game set up by Snow, especially with the mentors. After winning the Hunger Games, Mags became a mentor for future tributes in District 4 for the next 63 years, and because of her role as both a mentor and a victor, it's likely that Mags contributed to the start of District 4's training of future tributes as careers. The history of the careers, and honestly the Hunger Games in general, for the next nearly 40 years in the world of Panem is very empty, but we're now moving on to characters who are actual career tributes, starting with a minor character. The first official career tribute chronologically in the Hunger Games franchise is the unnamed runner-up of the 50th Hunger Games, who was a girl from District 1. As this Hunger Games was the second quarter quell, the number of tributes was doubled from 24 to 48, with 4 tributes from every district. It is unknown if this girl from District 1 volunteered for the game, but it is specified that at this point in Panem's history, Districts 1, 2, and 4 having volunteers was common practice, so it's possible that she did. The only description we're given of this girl is that she's quite tall and strong, and also very quick on her feet. In the arena, she joined the 10-person career alliance that were likely responsible for the majority of deaths in the bloodbath. During the next 2 days of the games, the careers scoured the mountains in the arena for potential victims. On the 4th day of the second quarter quell, a volcanic eruption occurred in the arena, killing half of the career alliance. Later on, one of the male tributes from District 12, Hamish Abernathy, found 3 of the remaining careers and killed 2 of them before he was disarmed by the 3rd, a boy from an unspecified career district. When this unknown boy tries to kill Hamish, he was then killed by a poisonous dart shot by one of the female tributes from District 12, Maisa Lee Donner. On the last day of the 50th Hunger Games, Hamish and the girl from District 1 are the final 2 tributes, as they both sustained near-fatal wounds as they fought to the death. Hamish gouged out one of the girl's eyes, and she disemboweled him with an axe. She chased Hamish up a cliff, and she threw her axe at him. However, Hamish dodged the attack. Due to the severity of Hamish's wounds, the girl from District 1 thought she just needed to wait until he succumbed to his injuries. However, the force field caused her axe to bounce back as they were close to the edge of the arena. Her axe lodged itself into her head, causing her to die instantly and leave Hamish as the winner of the second quarter quell. I should also mention that fans of the Hunger Games have created fake names for this character since she is never named, but the most common names I've seen being Opal and Diamond. The next time we see a career tribute in chronological order is the winner of a non-specific Hunger Games, Brutus. While it is never stated which year Brutus won his games, it can be inferred based on him being at least 40 years old in the events of Catching Fire. He won somewhere between the 41st and the 53rd games, excluding the second quarter quell because that was won by Haymitch, and the 45th games, which were won by Chaff from District 11. Fellow Hunger Games content creator Christian Blanco headcanoned that Brutus won the 47th Hunger Games in the YouTube series Tales of the Hunger Games. Also, like many of the other tributes from District 2, Brutus's name is a reference to ancient Rome, in which Brutus was a common name in ancient Rome, but specifically his name is a reference to the assassin of Julius Caesar, Marcus Junius Brutus the Younger. After winning his games, Brutus became a mentor for future District 2 tributes up until the 75th Hunger Games, and because I'm going in chronological order, I will be discussing later on in this video and delving deeper into Brutus's character and his importance in the third quarter quell. Up next is a victor that we barely know anything about. Lime. Lime is a victor of an unspecified Hunger Games, but because of the fact that she's supposed to be middle-aged during the events of Mockingjay, it's likely she won her games in its 4th or 5th decade, around the time Chaff, Brutus, and Haymitch won their games. While it's never specified if Lime was a volunteer or career, because of the implication that she won her games around the time Brutus won his, it's easy to infer that Lime was also a career. Katniss also states upon meeting Lime in Mockingjay that she remembers her, despite the fact that Katniss was not alive during Lime's winning game, meaning that Lime was likely a popular victor. In Mockingjay, Katniss further explains that she saw glimpses of her over the years in broadcasts of the Hunger Games and noticed that Lime kept a low profile in her games. She questions in her inner monologue if Lime suffered mistreatment from the Capitol after her win, specifically because right before meeting Lime in Mockingjay, Katniss learned more explicitly about how the Capitol killed Haymitch's family after the second quarter quell, and how the Capitol forced Finnick into prostitution. After winning her games, Lime went on to be a mentor for future District 2 tributes. Presumably, she would have been at the District 2 reaping for the 75th Hunger Games, but sat on the sidelines as a later winner that I will discuss next becomes the female tribute for the third quarter quell. Another very interesting fact is that apparently Effie gave Katniss and Peeta a tape of Lime's games to prepare for the 75th Hunger Games. After the destruction of District 12 and the beginning of the Second Rebellion, Lime became a commander for the rebels in District 2. During the events of Mockingjay, Lime met with the rebel forces from District 13 to discuss plans to invade the Nut, a mountain that was a main hub for the Capitol's military. Lime then commanded and oversaw a failed attempt to attack the Capitol, causing her and her troops to retreat. She is present for a couple of meetings between the District 13 rebels where she rejects any involvement with Coin or Katniss. While Gale's idea of disabling the Nut is approved, Lime shows discontent for his plan of killing the workers in the attack. The rebels follow through with Gale and Beatty's plan and they capture the Nut, whereas Lime presumably returned back to District 2. However, Lime was not present at the meeting for the surviving victors to vote on having a symbolic 76th Hunger Games with the Capitol's children, thus implying that she died. It can be assumed that she was killed sometime in between these events of Mockingjay. It is unclear when or how Lime died, but it likely happened after the Nut was captured by the rebels. Next is honestly one of the most underrated characters in all of the Hunger Games franchise, the winner of the 62nd Hunger Games, Anabaria. 12 years before the events of the first Hunger Games story in the books, Anabaria volunteered for the games, and then in the arena she proceeded to win her games. In her first games, it is alluded that Anabaria was younger than a typical career tribute, so about 15 or 16, and has been said to be extremely skilled with knives, swords, and hand-to-hand combat. There's no massive detail given about Anabaria's first Hunger Games other than the explicit way that she won. When it was down to just her and one last tribute, she overpowered them by ripping their throat out with only her bare teeth. This action made her an incredibly popular victor in the Capitol, and she went on to get her teeth cosmetically and permanently sharpened, with them also being inlaid with gold in the books. Like many other victors, Anabaria likely went on to mentor future District 2 tributes before she would be in the games again for the third quarter quell for District 2. In this video, I especially want to elaborate on Anabaria's character because while it's very easy to dismiss her character as a feral and ruthless killer, her character is a lot more than that. it. Fellow media analyst and someone I absolutely adore, Lucky, also known as Lucky Lefty on TikTok, mentions that if someone uses their mouth in a fight, chances are they are in a desperate position. If Anabaria was winning the fight against the last tribute, you'd think she'd hastily defeat them with a weapon, and while some interpret her method of killing the final tribute as animalistic unhinged and think this paints Anabaria in the same manner, I see this as her losing the fight and them biting into their throat as a last resort out of terror rather than bloodlust. After her victory, the Capitol likely framed her narrative in the ruthless winning game they'd expect from a favored district victor, and a narrative that they would find more exciting in their eyes. Rather than showing the reality of Anabaria being on the brink of death and using her teeth in an extreme state of vulnerability, the Capitol makes Anabaria out to be a violent, vicious killer, and then Anabaria feels this need to capitalize, pun intended, off of her fame by sharpening her teeth permanently as a constant reminder of how she won the games. The Capitol is likely most entertained by their expectations of a ruthless District 2 career being met and exceeded, especially if she was younger than the typical career, and Anabaria went along with this image of herself either because during the first couple years of her victory before the end of Catching Fire and the end of Mockingjay, she didn't truly see the evils of the Capitol and understand them for herself in the way that the other victors have, or she complied to defend herself from those in the Capitol who wanted to take advantage of her, and ended up fitting the image the Capitol associates with her. I'm more inclined to believe my first reason for why she complied with altering her teeth because she was likely not a part of the rebel plan and possibly volunteered for the 75th Hunger Games with Brutus. In the film, Anabaria alongside Brutus does seem enthusiastic about going back into the arena, but of course this could just be an act, for once again, Anabaria's views on the games likely changed severely from Catching Fire to Mockingjay. The Hunger Games Wikipedia says she volunteered, however many fans believe that Anabaria was also chosen by Snow intentionally to compete in the quarter quell for 1, a better chance of eliminating Katniss, and 2, possibly getting out a threat to the Capitol in Anabaria herself, who, especially with my take on her character, has some anti-Capitol ideology, which is also seen later on in Mockingjay. Anabaria's character can be taken in many directions, and I will continue talking about her shortly when I get to the career pack of the 75th Hunger Games, but now we're moving on to the victor directly after Anabaria and the first half of the brother-sister duo of District 1, Gloss. 1 year after Anabaria won her games, Gloss, who is said to be on the older side of the reaping age, about 17 or 18, volunteered as the male tribute for District 1 in the 63rd Hunger Games. As a career, Gloss was trained in combat, specifically knives, and while no further detail is given about his games, it can be assumed that he won his games hastily. Something I've also ignored to mention in this video is that it's likely that these tributes' victories can also be attributed to their amount of sponsors, and that they had the Capitol on their side rooting for them, and Gloss is no exception. After winning his games, it's possible he became a mentor for future District 1 tributes, and possibly mentored the next person I'm going to discuss, his very own sister. The following year, Kashmir, Gloss's sister, volunteered as the District 1 female tribute in the 64th Hunger Games. Her narrative with her brother being the past victor likely caused the Capitol to turn their eyes to her, and the 64th Hunger Games easily became her narrative, along with her career status and combat skills with throwing knives. No further detail is given about her games, but after winning, she returned back to District 1, moved into the Victor's Village in the district with her brother, and possibly became a mentor for future District 1 tributes. I even talked about it in my first Hunger Games video that it's likely that Kashmir mentored Glimmer, the District 1 female tribute in the 74th Hunger Games. In Mockingjay, it's heavily alluded to that Kashmir was taken advantage of by the Capitol, and she, like many other victors, was forced into prostitution. Kashmir is another character that I will delve into even further when I get to the events of the 75th Hunger Games, so please stay tuned. Next is the Capitol darling, the peacock himself, Finnick Odair. While many want to dismiss District 4 tributes, especially Finnick and someone I'll discuss shortly, as career tributes mostly due to the film's distinction that the career pack is only Districts 1 and 2, I feel like it is crucial in the story to assert that District 4 is a career district for both the story told in the series as a whole and to add a lot of dimension to these characters. I also think many people want to say that District 4 are not careers because they want to separate beloved characters like Finnick and even Mags from their idea of a career mostly formed from the first book, being ruthless, sadistic killing machines. But even then, 1, that's a completely wrong way to view the careers, and 2, I think that District 4 characters are even more fascinating to look at as careers, even with their amazing positive qualities. The character I hinted at just one sentence ago is quite literally one of, if not my favorite character in the Hunger Games series, and I think her character is so much more compelling with the fact that she was a career tribute. But anyways, back to Finnick. In the 65th Hunger Games at the age of 14, Finnick volunteered for the games and was mentored by Mags. During his first games, Finnick is described as extraordinarily skilled in combat, especially in water due to being from District 4, as well as having a remarkable talent at capturing the audience's attention, also accredited to his mentors, stylists, and prep team. A lot of his popularity in the capital was accredited to many of the capital citizens finding him attractive, which, friendly reminder, he was 14 during this time, and he likely had a very memorable parade look, high training score, and interview with Caesar Flickerman. In the arena, he utilized his skills with spears, knives, and fishing nets to survive. Throughout the games, he received many sponsors, including what is considered to be the most expensive gift given during any Hunger Games, and the weapon that then became synonymous with Finnick, his trident. To win his games, Finnick also used fishing gear and vines from the arena to make a net where he ensnared and immobilized his opponents before spearing them, almost like a wild fish caught in a net. Also, fun fact, Finnick's main style of combat is based on a type of Roman gladiator, the retiarist, who used a net to entangle their opposition and then impaled them with a trident. Additionally, the retiari often had reputations of being very skilled fishermen, which suits Finnick as he's from District 4. At 14 years old, Finnick became the youngest victor ever in the history of the Hunger Games, and he became one of the most memorable victors, which is seen by him being the only victor in the 75th Hunger Games that Katniss knew, well besides Peeta. After winning the 65th Hunger Games, Finnick was sex trafficked by President Snow, and Snow threatened to kill Finnick's family if he didn't comply. The general public in both the districts and the capital were unaware that this happened to victors, as Finnick wasn't the only one that was trafficked in the history of the Hunger Games, and the public simply believed that Finnick had a fair share of romantic partners when he visited the capital. When Finnick was sold to capital customers, he wouldn't ask for money. Instead, he would ask them to spill their secrets. A lot of them ended up being about President Snow. He was also a mentor for future tributes of District 4 alongside Mags and other victors from District 4 up until the events of the 75th Hunger Games, in which I will discuss Finnick in greater detail. Jumping 2 years forward, we have our next career victor, Augustus Braun. While Augustus was never a present character or even mentioned at all in the series, he was confirmed as a character as a part of the marketing campaign for Mockingjay Part 2 on the Capitol Couture website. His age during the 67th Hunger Games or the events of the trilogy are never confirmed. However, it's likely that, like most career tributes, he was about 17 or 18 when he volunteered for the Hunger Games. It is likely that he was mentored by Gloucester Cashmere, and no further detail is given about his game, but it can be assumed that he overpowered many tributes on his path to victory. After his victory, he became known as the Cavalier Career, meaning that he had an air of arrogance about him in the games, or perhaps referencing his loyalties to the capital, as Cavalier was also a term used for supporters of the crown in the English Civil War. The Capitol Couture website posted images to promote his victory tour across Pan Am, with the posters depicting him in an all-white ensemble completely covering his body. Another image shows him in a white wrestling uniform and displays that he was quite muscular. In this victory tour, he wore bright garments and had an optimistic and patriotic demeanor that completely contrasted the unkempt, vicious persona he kept up during the game. He was beloved by the capital due to his patriotism, frequently singing his praises and labeling him Pan Am's favorite son and a figure of reconciliation. After his victory tour, he moved into the Victor's Village in District 1 and presumably mentored for future District 1 tributes. He would have been in attendance at the reaping in District 1 of the 75th Hunger Games. However, after the start of the Second Rebellion began an event that Hunger Games fans labeled the Victor's Purge. After the abrupt end to the 75th Hunger Games leaving 6 tributes alive, the capital killed victors that were suspected to also be rebels, and the rebels killed victors thought to be loyalists to the capital. Because Alma Coin states that the 7 victors present at the vote for a symbolic 76 Hunger Games were the last surviving victors, Augustus Braun died in the Victor's Purge at the age of around 28. While his affiliations are never stated, it's likely that he remained loyal to the capital due to his status and was killed by the rebels. We are now moving on to one of my all-time favorite characters in the entire trilogy, the victor of the 70th Hunger Games, Annie Cresta. While it is never stated whether Annie and her male tribute in her respective games volunteered, I think it's much more fascinating and adds more to her character to think that she did volunteer along with the boy from District 4. This interpretation is also backed up by the fact that Annie is confirmed to be 23 years old during the events of Catching Fire, which means she won at 18, the age careers typically volunteer at. Annie likely was a capable fighter due to training from being a career, and she was possibly well liked in the capital due to her status as a career. However, at some point in the games, she witnessed her district partner get decapitated, and upon seeing the brutal death of her partner, she was traumatized and isolated herself for the rest of the games. On the final day of the games, an earthquake broke a dam, causing the arena to flood. Since she's from District 4, Annie was the best swimmer as the flood eliminated all of the remaining tributes. After her games, she moved into the Victor's Village in District 4 and started a romantic relationship with Finnick O'Dare. However, the trauma she experienced caused her to develop symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, but the capital simply calls her mentally unstable. She often closes her eyes and covers her ears, falls into a daze, and laughs at unusual times. The only person who could calm Annie was Finnick. It is also implied by Katniss not recognizing Annie in the film of Catching Fire that Annie was not a well-received victor, even with her career status. My personal interpretation of why Annie wasn't a beloved victor like her lover or other career victors is 1, how she won because of an arena event, and 2, because as the Hunger Games series is a critique on American society, it's possible that, like our society, the capital demonizes mental health issues. With Annie having PTSD and having symptoms of her disorder that are deemed not palatable, she was deemed hysterical and mad, when in reality she was traumatized by the brutality of the games. This interpretation is also backed up by Katniss only remembering Annie as the one who went a little crazy.
Now that I've explained Annie's games, I need to bring up why I believe it is so crucial to Annie's character to see her as a career, and also how this connects to a character I've already analyzed before on this channel.
We have no idea what Annie was like before she won her games, but with the added interpretation of her being a career, she was likely similar to the careers we see in the games in the 70s, kind of cocky, maybe a little sadistic, and possibly viewing the games in a positive light. Annie was likely fed the propaganda saying it's an honor to compete in the games and bring pride to your district, leading her to volunteer. But after witnessing the gruesome death of her partner, she realized the harsh reality of the games, causing her mental health to spiral.
If this is sounding a little familiar to you, well, it should, because this is nearly the same exact thing that happened to Cato in the 74th games.
I will be discussing him in a second since we're almost at the 74th games in the timeline, but Cato started the games as the ideal image of a career tribute. However, as the games continued, he both had a deeply emotional reaction, at least in the books, to his district partner's death, and Katniss remarks in the book that Cato is possibly struggling from a mental standpoint. She says, "But he was completely unhinged. I wonder now if Cato might not be entirely sane. I believe Cato could easily lose his judgment in a fit of temper." Page 310 to 311. It's likely that Cato experienced a similar traumatic reaction to Annie as the games continued after Clove's death, and then as we see in Cato's final moments in the film, he realized the glaring reality of the games that he was just a tool used by the capital for the games. While Cato died hours after his realization, Annie won her games and lived with this realization and trauma for the rest of her life. I touched on this in my last Hunger Games video, but if Cato won the 74th Hunger Games, he would likely be a hated victor, and his narrative would be that he killed the star-crossed lovers, and he likely would have broken down during his victor interview and the victory tour. The parallels between Annie and Cato are something I never considered until I started working on this video, but I think it adds a lot to both of them. Moving on to the events of Catching Fire, Annie was raped as the female tribute for the 75th Hunger Games, but Mags volunteered for her. Annie's voice was also used by the capital in the form of the Jabberjays to torture Finnick during the games. After the 75th Games arena was destroyed, Annie was arrested and allegedly tortured by the capital. While the capital says she was taken hostage due to being suspected of treason with the rebels and other victors, Finnick suspects that she was arrested to be used as a weapon against him. A group of rebels then broke into the capital and took Annie safely to District 13, where she and Finnick got married in the traditional style of District 4. During their time in District 13, Katniss realized that the capital over-exaggerated what everyone thought of Annie and realized she wasn't a mad, hysterical person. She was merely traumatized by the games. At the aforementioned meeting between the last remaining 7 victors, Annie voted no for Coin's idea of a symbolic Hunger Games with the capital elite's children, and she says Finnick would have voted alongside her. After the second rebellion, Annie went back to District 4 where she gave birth to her and Finnick's son.
Going back to characters we literally know nothing about, we have the victor of the 73rd Hunger Games, whom we literally know nothing about.
In the first book, Katniss mentions that the last winner of the Hunger Games before the events of the story was a boy from District 2, and because she mentions this while discussing the careers, it's clear that he was a career who volunteered for the games. After winning, it's possible that he took part in some of Clove and Cato's mentoring as the newest victor, and it's likely that he trained with Cato and Clove in District 2 in the career training program. He was presumably at the reaping for the 75th Hunger Games, but it's unlikely that he was a mentor for Brutus and Anabaria in the third quarter quell due to his young age and the recency of his win. In Mockingjay Part 1, there's a list of victors that can be seen briefly, and although this list contradicts with other sources related to the Hunger Games, according to this piece of evidence, this character was the first District 2 victor since Anabaria, and his name was Wade Rankin. Wade would then die in the Victor's Purge or during the rebellions in District 2 as he did not attend the surviving victors meeting in Mockingjay Part 2.
Now, we have finally made it to the present day of the Hunger Games trilogy with the career tributes of the 74th Games.
Glimmer and Marvel of District 1 and Clove and Cato of District 2 make up the career pack in the film. However, in the book, the unnamed girl from District 4 was also a part of the Alliance.
Those who haven't read the book or seen the film may be wondering right now, what about the boy from District 4? Well, it's kind of complicated.
In the film, the District 4 boy is 12 years old, the youngest age eligible to be in the games, meaning that he is likely not a career. Lucky Lefty made a wonderful TikTok about this character, stating that it's tragically ironic that none of the training careers volunteered for him, and also the mirror of this boy and Prim, Katniss' sister. She makes an interesting point that the boy from District 4 is likely an idea of how Prim would act in the games if Katniss didn't volunteer for her, with the boy running and hiding in the cornucopia. It is stated in the movie that his training score was an 8 and his betting odds were 15-1, so it's possible that he had some fighting or survival abilities, but in the film at least he was not a career. During the bloodbath, he was the last tribute killed, and he was killed by Cato while trying to run out of the cornucopia. It is also important to note that in an early draft of the Hunger Games script, District 4 was considered a career district and the boy tribute was named Bravura. Upon some research, Bravura means to show off technical skill and brilliance in a performance mostly related to music, which likely alludes to a possibility that this character may have had an arrogant personality similar to Cato and Marvel. However, Bravura in this early version of the script died after stepping off the starting podium too early at the beginning of the games. In the books, the District 4 male was presumably much older and had more of the look of a career. He does still die in the bloodbath, and as the fallen slideshow appears in the sky on the first night, Katniss remarks, "Then the boy from 4. I didn't expect that one. Usually all the careers make it through the first day, 155 to 156, which confirms that in the book he was a career. With Bravura dead, the main career alliance in the book is Glimmer, Marvel, Clove, Cato, and the girl from District 4, whom the actress who played her in the film, Tara Mackin, has named Marina. The career path also attempted to bring in stronger tributes from other districts, starting with Thresh after he scored a high number in his training evaluation, but he declined their offer. They successfully bring in Peeta, thinking he will lead them to Katniss, and later on, they recruit the boy from District 3 because of his expertise with explosives. The career pack killed the majority of the victims in the bloodbath, with the only exceptions being the boy from District 7 who was killed by Thresh and the girl from District 3 who was killed by the boy from District 5. In the film, Marina can be seen training with throwing knives and a bow and arrow, but in the arena, she is one of the final tributes to die in the bloodbath, placing 13th. However, in the books, she was with the careers up until the Tracker Jacker incident on day 5. While the other careers run for the lake, Glimmer and Marina get stung multiple times by the Tracker Jackers. Glimmer tries to swat the wasps with her bow, while Marina tries to run after the other careers and make it to the lake. Both Glimmer and Marina die from the Tracker Jacker venom, with Marina dying first. I go into much further detail analyzing Glimmer along with the rest of the careers of the 74th Hunger Games in my first video about this series, so if you'd like a more in-depth look at what these characters represent in the story, give that video a watch. In between days 5 and 8, the remaining careers built a pyramid of their supplies and food, and they had the boy from District 3 reactivate the mines in the starting circle of the arena to guard the supplies. After Katniss and Rue team up and destroy the career's supplies on day 8, Cato in a fit of rage snaps the boy from District 3's neck as they try to hunt down the culprit of the destroyed supplies. The next day, Marvel traps Rue in a net and stabs her with a spear, but Katniss gets to her in time and shoots one of her arrows into his chest, killing him. 4 days later, Clove is killed by Thresh at the feast. Lastly, Cato is pulled apart by the wolf mutts, but he isn't pronounced dead until Katniss shoots an arrow through his skull on the morning of day 18.
I also wanted to add a new fact that I've learned that ties back to my analysis of Cato in my first Hunger Games video.
Susan Collins has stated that the Hunger Games were partially inspired by the myth of Theseus and the sacrificial victims of the Minotaur in Greek mythology, which ties back to the interpretation that Cato is a representation of Theseus and why he is dressed as Theseus during the tribute parade.
Finally, we have the career pack of the third quarter quell, along with some extra characters.
When watching the other reapings, Katniss says, as one would expect, the pool of career tributes from District 1, 2, and 4 are the largest, page 177, meaning that many of the career victors are still alive and were eligible to be reaped into the 75th Hunger Games. In District 1, we don't see any of the other victors other than the 2 tributes, Cashmere and Gloss. Katniss notes that they are classically beautiful, page 178, which alludes to a likely possibility that Gloss and Cashmere in their games were given lots of sponsors because of their appearances as well as their career status. She also remarks on Brutus's eagerness to return to the arena. In the film, we see 3 other past victors from District 2, 1 man and 2 women. All 3 of them look to be middle-aged, so they likely won their games in between the 40s and 50s of the games, around the time that Chaff, Haymitch, Brutus, and Lime won their games. In District 4, we see 3 other male victors, one who looks about 70, one who is middle-aged, and one who looks to be in his late 20s to early 30s. The first victor likely won in the 10s to 20s of the Hunger Games, the second in the late 30s to 40s, and the youngest one in the late 60s. Like Gloss and Cashmere, Finnick is noted for also being beloved by the Capitol for his appearance and skills. Katniss states, Finnick Odair is something of a living legend in Pan Am. Being from District 4, he was a career, so the odds were already in his favor, but what no trainer could claim to have given him was his extraordinary beauty. Tall, athletic, with golden skin and bronze-colored hair and those incredible eyes. While other tributes that year were hard-pressed to get a handful of grain or some matches for a gift, Finnick never wanted for anything, not food or medicine or weapons. It took about a week for his competitors to realize that he was the one to kill, but it was too late. He was already a good fighter with the spears and knives he had found in the cornucopia. When he received a silver parachute with a trident, which may be the most expensive gift I've ever seen in the arena, it was all over. The trident was a natural, deadly extension of his arm, and within a matter of days the crown was his. The citizens of the capital have been drooling over him ever since. Because of his youth, they couldn't really touch him for the first year or two, but ever since he turned 16, he spent his time at the games being dogged by those desperately in love with him. No one retains his favor for long. Could go through 4 or 5 in his annual visit. Old or young, lovely or plain, rich or very rich. He'll keep them company and take their extravagant gifts, but he never stays. And once he's gone, he never comes back. I can't argue that Finnick isn't one of the most stunning, sensuous people on the planet. Page 194 to 195. Of course, this is before Katniss knows the horrible reality that Finnick was forced into prostitution during his visits to the capital, but Katniss's read on Finnick other than that is strikingly true. The capital fell head over heels in love and infatuation with him because he was their ideal, a tribute that they can make an icon, a celebrity, and someone they can mold to their desires. He was everything the capital could have wanted in a winner, the beauty of an Italian Renaissance marble statue and the eagerness of a merciless, tactful killer. This also plays into why many people believe that the capital wanted Finnick to win the 75th Hunger Games if not for the rebel plan. As a career, and one of the most beloved at that, only he could make killing the star-crossed lovers look like a beneficial favor to Pan Am. Haymitch even advises Katniss and Peeta before the training period to not ignore Finnick. During the training period, Finnick and his district partner Mags train in different areas including knot tying and archery, whereas Brutus throws spears. Gloss and Cashmere in the book invite Katniss to make hammocks with them during training. Katniss also trains using swords with Anabaria, but neither of them want to work together. While the training evaluation scores are never outright stated, Katniss notes that all of the careers received high scores, around 9 to 11. In the interviews, Katniss says, there are the old throwbacks like Brutus and Anabaria who are just here for another games, page 233, meaning that unlike many of the other victors, Brutus and Anabaria do not try to stop the games. The interviews, however, first start with Cashmere as she makes a speech about how the capital will suffer without their beloved victors, saying over and over that she just can't stop crying, page 233. After her is Gloss, who recalls the kindness the capital gave to him and Cashmere. However, in the film, Gloss and Cashmere are interviewed together, and Gloss says,
"We're not going by choice. You are our family. And I don't see how anyone can love us better."
Like in the books, Cashmere repeatedly says that she can't stop crying. Finnick recites a poem for his one true love where he says,
"If I die in that arena, my last thought will be of your lips."
Of course, we know he's talking about Annie, but in the book, Katniss states, about 100 people faint because they're pretty sure he means them, page 233. After Peeta causes an uproar with the most iconic line in literature and film,
"If it weren't for the baby,
The careers join with the other tributes by joining hands in defiance to the Capitol. However, in the books, Katniss says, up and down the row, the victors begin to join hands. Some right away, like the Morphlings, or Wirus and Beetee. Others unsure but caught up in the demands of those around them, like Brutus and Anabaria, page 240. More so in the books, Brutus and Anabaria are still loyal to the Capitol and believe in the propaganda that specifically the career districts have been force-fed by the Capitol. The next day in the arena, Finnick tells Katniss, don't trust 1 and 2, meaning that Gloss and Cashmere, even while joining the victors' active protest, were still going to keep the games going. As the career pact reaches the cornucopia, Anabaria dodges Katniss's arrow, but Gloss is not so lucky and gets an arrow plunged into his calf. Gloss, Cashmere, Brutus, and Anabaria form the same kind of career pact as the first film, whereas Finnick and Mags align with Katniss and Peeta. Hours later, Finnick gives Peeta mouth-to-mouth to save him after he accidentally hits the force field. In the early hours of day 2, Mags sacrifices herself and walks to the poisonous fog. A few hours later at the cornucopia, the alliance of Katniss, Peeta, Finnick, Beetee, Wirus, and Joanna are ambushed by the career alliance as Gloss stabs Wirus in the neck. Seconds later, Katniss kills Gloss with an arrow to the chest in the film, but the head in the book, as Joanna kills Cashmere with her axe. Brutus and Anabaria attack as Anabaria stabs Finnick in the thigh, but the fight stops there as the game maker spins the cornucopia. The next day, Beetee comes up with a plan to kill Brutus and Anabaria by electrocuting them on the wet sand. However, hours later, the wire snaps and a cannon fires, signaling that Brutus has killed Chaff in an unstated manner, but it's likely he was killed using Brutus's spear. Finnick and Katniss try to kill Anabaria, but then they hear a second cannon which was for Brutus, who was killed by Peeta.
Fun fact, Brutus is the last person ever killed in any Hunger Games, and his death subtly references Cato's, as they were both District 2 males who were the last to die in their respective games.
Before Katniss can kill Anabaria, she changes her plan and uses her bow and arrow to destroy the arena. Finnick, Katniss, and Beetee are rescued by rebel forces from District 13, but Peeta, Joanna, and Anabaria, and later Annie, are captured by the Capitol. District 13 speculates that Anabaria wasn't punished as harshly as Joanna and Peeta due to her popularity in the Capitol, and it is somewhat confirmed that the Capitol let her go back home to District 2. Annie was tortured not for information about the rebellion, but for psychological warfare to bring Finnick to them. In District 13, Finnick became distressed and only thought about rescuing Annie. The rescue team eventually rescues Annie, and after District 2 was conquered, Anabaria joined the rebels. Anabaria was spared from the rebels' part of the Victor's Purge due to the Mockingjay deal made by Katniss and Coin. Finnick, along with Katniss, perform a live interview to broadcast to all of Pan Am, where Finnick exposes the Capitol, especially President Snow, for forcing him into prostitution. He also reveals all of the secrets he was told by his past patrons, including that Snow poisons political allies to remain president. Afterwards, Finnick and Annie get married and Annie becomes pregnant with their child. As the rebels travel to President Snow's mansion, they are attacked by lizard mutts. Finnick tries to fight the mutts, but in the book, the lizard mutts bite his head off, killing him. Katniss then drops a bomb into the tunnel to kill all of the mutts.
There is some tragic irony in Finnick's death in the books, which is that both Finnick, Annie's lover, and Annie's district partner in the 70th Hunger Games died of decapitation.
In Mockingjay Part 2, Finnick nearly climbs up the tunnel with Katniss before a lizard mutt grabs him and pulls him into the water. He is then torn apart and bitten many times by the mutt, but his true cause of death is Katniss dropping the bomb into the tunnel. After the mutt attack, Coin gathered the 7 remaining victors to vote on her plan of a symbolic Hunger Games with capital children. As I mentioned earlier, Annie votes no and says it's what Finnick would have wanted too, whereas Anabaria votes yes, saying,
"So do I. Let them have a taste of it."
Both Annie and Anabaria are present at what is supposed to be Snow's execution, as Katniss instead kills Coin as Snow succumbs to his tuberculosis in the books and is beaten to death by the rebels in the film. After the death of President Snow and the end to the Hunger Games, Annie goes back to District 4 and gives birth to her and Finnick's son, and Anabaria goes back to District 2, making them the only surviving careers in the series.
And that is the completed history of the careers in the Hunger Games series. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe to this channel, and make sure to turn on the bell for notifications, and leave a comment down below. For a question of the video, who is your favorite character in the Hunger Games series? I always answer my own questions in these, so my favorite characters are Annie, Effie, and Foxface. But I want to hear from all of you. I'll see you on the next video. Thank you so much. But wait, here's a video for you on your way out.